shadow rapporteur for the Greens.
There we've already had a snapshot of what we'll see today. Thank you, MEP Guarda, for sending the video. I think we're still working on a bit of technical issues, but I think we can also get started already, because the slides will be particularly important as soon as we move to the QR code presentation later during the evening. I'm so excited to see so many of you here with us today. And I'm going to be starting with a quick personal remark. Is that okay for everyone? Is it okay if we start? Yeah? Okay, perfect, thank you. So I think we all know it when we get home after a long day and we're incredibly tired and we just want some food, we want to cook something for ourselves at home. And we walk into a supermarket. This recently happened to me. We walk into a supermarket and there's a really tiny corridor. And I am almost afraid to hit the bottles left and right of myself because there's so many bottles with alcohol, with beer and wine and schnapps. And then you reach the section where you have chips and fatty foods, and only after that you get to the vegetable section that you were originally there for. And what that happening taught me was that it was not my personal choice to stay away from alcohol. I had no choice. That choice was made for me. And I'm really, really happy to welcome you here all today. My name is Hannah Koch. I'm a political science student from Germany, and I'm also part of the Youth Alcohol Network. And just for a bit of timekeeping and rules of conduct, please be mindful of time when speaking. We have someone here in the front who will be, also for all the panelists, who will be holding up little placards with time, with minutes. Please be respectful, be open-minded. I think this event really has the capacity to bring new voices and young voices here to the European Parliament. And I don't know if red and blue cards have arrived. Does everyone have them? We will be using them throughout this event. You can guess what red stands for. Blue in this case should have been green. And we'll be starting with a quick test just to get everyone engaged. Who here believes that meaningful change begins with conversation? Please raise your placards. Wow, thank you everyone. So, we're really excited to have you all here, and I'm really excited to introduce the two people next to me who are actually hosting this event. To my right, we have Manuela Ripa, a member of the European Parliament with the EPP group, serving, among other committees, on the Committee on the Environment, Public Health and Food Safety, and on the Committee on Public Health. And she served in the previous legislative term on the Special Committee on Beating Cancer. Thank you, Manuela, for being here, and I now give you the word.
Thank you very much, Hannah, for this great introduction, and a great welcome to all of you, especially also to my colleagues. I'm very happy to have this dialogue with you, because this is something that we would like to achieve today, not to have a discussion, but really a dialogue together. So it is my great pleasure to welcome you to the European Parliament, which I'm, as already said, co-hosting with my dear colleague Vytenis Andriukaitis, and I would like to express my thanks to him, as well as to our co-organizers, Eurocare, the European Association for the Study of the Liver, the United European Gastroenterology, and the representatives of the World Health Organization, and of course to you, to youth representatives here today, whose tireless commitment to make this discussion both necessary and possible. When I was asked to host this event, I of course agreed, because the topic is simply too important to be ignored, and because it is crucial that young people are meaningfully included in this conversation. And to say it right from the beginning and to make it crystal clear, this event is not about forbidding anything. Everybody, of course, is free to drink whatever they want. But this is about ensuring that people, especially young generation, have a knowledge about the risk associated with alcohol and are properly informed so that they can make conscious or even better healthy choices. We are gathered here during the European Alcohol Awareness Week with one shared objective, that to rethink prevention. Why is this so important? Because alcohol-related harm is one of the most preventable yet neglected public health challenges in Europe. Cancer is now the leading cause of alcohol-related death, accounting for almost a third of all fatalities linked to alcohol. Around 10% of cancers caused cases in men and 3% in women are directly linked to alcohol use. With 40% of all cancers being preventable, this is not just a health issue, it's a matter of policy. A recent EU-wide study shows that more than 1/3 of 15-year-old report binge drinking, meaning excessive alcohol drinking, in the last month, despite age restrictions in place across member states. Prevention is not abstract. It is a response to real harm and a duty we carry towards future generations. We must reframe how we talk about alcohol and center the conversation around the most affected, young people, because they are both one of the primary targets of alcohol marketing and they are vulnerable to its long-term consequences. We know the evidence and still we face obstacles. Alcohol is linked to over 200 diseases. It is classified by the WHO as a group 1 carcinogenic in the same category as asbestos and tobacco. Nearly 1 million deaths each year in Europe are alcohol-related. And alcohol is, of course, highly addictive. Oh, I'm indicating 2 minutes. Then I have to talk faster. Yet alcohol remains one of the most downplayed risk factors in our society. And this reflects the difficulty of turning strong commitments into concrete action. In the last legislative term, I already was mentioned, I was part of the BECA committee, of the Beating Cancer Committee. And there, we made in the committee clear evidence-based recommendations, meaning mandatory health warnings and full ingredients and calorie labeling, a strong message that alcohol consumption increases cancer risks, a ban on alcohol sponsorship in sport, particularly where youth are exposed, and a fundamental recognition that there is no safe level of alcohol consumption. To make it short, because I only have 2 minutes, I was not told about it, it didn't go through. Even the WHO recommendation, there is no safe level of alcohol, was changed in the safest level is none. Health warnings became a reference to responsible drinking information, and a ban on alcohol sponsorship was only linked where mostly minors attend, whatever that means. It creates a lot of loopholes. So, another thing that is always in the discussion in the parliament is the cultural argument. My colleagues often speak of wine and beers as part of natural heritage. These traditions matter, but so do facts. Alcohol is related to culture, but in even more, it is also a public health issue. We need to hold both realities at once. And I have to repeat it again. This is not about prohibition nor about moral judgment. I myself also enjoy, for sure, a glass of wine once in a while. But tradition should not override evidence, especially where young people are concerned. So I think that action has now to follow words, because in the European Commission's Beating Cancer Plan, there was a commitment in 2023 of health warnings, full labeling by 2022, advertising regulation, fiscal tools, a 10% reduction in alcohol, in harmful alcohol use by 2025, but nothing happened. And even our Commissioner for Health, Mr. Vaheli, commented that it is key to tackle non-communicable diseases, and he named alcohol as one of the top 3 risk factors alongside tobacco and poor diets. And that is why I think as nothing had happened, this dialogue is very important, and I will finish now. If we want truly to protect public health, especially for the next generations, we must move from knowledge to action, from delay to delivery. And that is why I'm looking very much forward to the dialogue today with you. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you for your opening remarks and for also stating what is very obvious, what the facts are, what we're looking at. That's why we're here today, to see what can we do, how can we bring young people into the conversation. And it is now my honor to give the word to Vytenis Andriukaitis, a doctor and former health minister, the former commissioner for health and now member of the SAND committee, and in fact also the SAND coordinator for the S&D group.
Yes, okay, I am one of the youngest in this podium, but I am so happy to see you, my young friend, young advocates. Now European Health Union is in your hands. And for my point of view, only one, I can, pass my estafette to you, because it's as never important to say that now I see full podium of young advocates. Let's join our forces. Let's be strong advocates. Let's do that our voice should be heard. Of course, you know very well that now I see Manuela just told very important topic. It's not up to us to forbid something, but sometimes we can introduce some limits. For example, to sell alcohol to children, it's forbidden. Or if you are flying in the airplane, announcement, it is forbidden to use your own alcohol, yes, of course. It means, or if you are driving car, full stop, it's forbidden. Sometimes we need to see in which areas we can to introduce mandatory regulatory frames, not only voluntary. Why I'm speaking about? Because I spent a lot of years debating issues related to labeling of alcohol beverages, you know. We achieved very difficult, and of course, I am very, it's shame on me that I had no chance to defend, to promote new alcohol strategy. Such alcohol still is not delivered at the moment. Why? Because alcohol lobby is very strong. Much stronger than we are in this room. And you know that intergroup on beer, intergroup on alcohol in this parliament they are promoting alcohol, industry. And if you can introduce mandatory labeling, because it is up to consumers to decide, but they need to know information in their hand. We still have no chance to do it. Of course, I delivered on voluntary basis, we signed agreement with beer industry to introduce labeling. With spirits, but it was very shameful example. I took bottle from Belarus at that time, showing them, look, in Belarus, on the label, all composition of alcohol is labeled. Why you are not ignoring Euro spirits? Why are you not ignoring it? And they decided to do it. But with wine, it was terrible situation. But now, of course, we have some labels. I just will finish. But please keep in mind that because of alcohol industry so strong, now I am facing big challenge. I see Florence, my best friend. You know, we spent a lot of years in Eurocare, of course, dealing. But now, can you imagine that operating grants were cut, and Eurocare faces difficulties? Maybe you can see Florence last time in this room, because the European Commission decided to cut financial support to those organizations. Can you compare alcohol industry capacities and NGOs industry capacities? Let's do, Manuela, let's join our forces. Let's press Commission. Let's see what can we do, because it's shameful. It's unacceptable for me. When I was commissioner, we fight that all NGOs should get grants. And now what's happened with us now? It is about our possibilities to you, especially to youngest, how you can operate without operational grants. How can you gather here if you have no chance to ask money support from industry side? No. We need now, as never before. I have finished because my 2 minutes are up.
Preach. Wow, I don't even know what to say after this. Thank you. Preach. So do young people. Thank you so much for your welcoming remarks. I think they really set the tone for tonight. I'm really excited to see what is coming forward. But now I'm inviting two young people to the stage, Carl and Antonio, who will also kind of give their point of view and share their experiences with alcohol lobby. Thank you. And first, it's my honor to introduce Carl. He's a final year medical student. He was actually the first Estonian youth delegate to the WHO, and he's also a practicing assistant doctor at an ER. And Antonio Pinho, he's a junior medical doctor from Portugal. He's also the United Nations Foundation Global People Fellow, and they're both also members of the Youth Alcohol Network under Avid Action. Thank you, welcome on stage. And
thank you so much. Good evening, everyone. And thank you for being here today and for believing that discussing prevention and access to information is not only necessary, but urgent. My name is Karsten Kõrgma, and I am the first Estonian youth delegate to the World Health Organization. This means I have the honor of representing the voices, experiences, and concerns of young people in Estonia on matters of public health. But I'm here today as a young person who sees firsthand how alcohol affects the lives of young people, not only in my home country, but across Europe and the world. We can talk about the statistics of alcohol harm. Across Europe, alcohol remains one of the leading risk factors for disease, injury, and early death. According to the WHO European region, alcohol contributes to over 200,000 deaths every year, including from cancers, liver disease, road injuries, suicides, and violence. Europe, in fact, has the highest level of alcohol consumption in the world. But this is only the truly visible harm and doesn't show all the different variations of the harm that our communities and young people experience. Many of us in this room have seen youth parties where alcohol was the only social currency. Friends getting hurt doing something stupid while under the influence of alcohol. Friends who grew up in families where alcohol turned homes into unsafe spaces. Or friends whose mental health has been worsened by alcohol use. The harm truly surrounds us. But let me ask you something. Who here has known someone, family, friend, co-worker, classmate, whose life has been harmed by alcohol? Please raise your hand if you're comfortable. This is the reality. This is why we are here. For many young people, alcohol is introduced before we have had a chance to form identity, boundaries, or self-confidence. And that is not accidental. It is a system built and reinforced by marketing, social pressure, and cultural norms. So no, we are not dealing with a small issue. We are dealing with a massive, normalized, and a preventable one. When we talk about young people, the vulnerability is clear. Our brain continues to develop around age 25. Alcohol consumption during these years can have lasting effects on memory, learning, emotional regulation, and decision making. And yet, despite this, 1 in every 3 young people in the EU reports heavy episodic drinking in the last month. This is not just about personal risk. It's about community risk, violence risk, and safety. Alcohol-related incidents are one of the leading contributors to youth involvement in fights, sexual violence, traffic accidents, and hospital admissions. The harm extends far beyond the individual who is consuming alcohol. It is also about women who feel unsafe to go out on a Friday night. It's about moms who worry if their children get safely home from their friend's birthday party. The harm truly surrounds us. It's not only visible in statistics, but in our daily lives. And while the stories are personal, they point to something larger. Alcohol-related harm is not just an individual issue, it's systematic. This is where prevention becomes not just important but necessary. Prevention means creating environments where alcohol is not the default. It means culture change, not blaming individuals, but by addressing the conditions and systems that shape our choices. This is about giving young people the information they need to make an informed decision about using alcohol. Young people today are growing up in a world where the future feels uncertain. Economic pressures are high, access to mental health care is limited, and social support is not always guaranteed. We hear constant talk about resilience, but resilience cannot exist without real support. Prevention and information are a part of that support. Prevention means making it possible for young people in this room and across Europe to become adults who are not carrying trauma, dependency, or invisible harm from substance that society often presents as harmless.
Thank you, Carl. The floor is...
Thank you, Anna. So good afternoon, everyone. It's a real pleasure to be here, and I want to begin by thanking MEPs Manuela Ripa and Vitani Tandrai-Kaidas for their commitment to an event of such importance. And many of you don't know me yet, so please allow me to introduce myself. My name is Antonio Pinho. I am in fact a medical doctor from Portugal, and I've only recently started my medical practice, just about 1 year ago. So that means that I live in an interesting intersection. I come from the youth perspective of the healthcare user, and now I stand on the other side of the system as a doctor who works inside it. So when I was a student, indeed, I saw healthcare from the outside. And even then, there was a theme that was always present, which was substance use, especially alcohol. It was everywhere, yet almost invisible when it came to risk. And now, in the emergency department, those abstract risks have faces. Just last week, I treated a patient bleeding from esophageal varices, consequence of advanced alcoholic cirrhosis. And we stopped the bleeding, yes, but we knew that the cause remained and that that patient would probably be back. Another day, I actually met a man who had been hospitalized as a social case. He was a victim of early onset dementia caused by years of drinking, abandoned by his family, and with no capability of self-care. And then there was a young woman, just 27-year-old in primary care, who never thought that she was at risk until she was diagnosed with breast cancer, and I had to explain to her that her casual drinking might have actually played a part in that. And as a junior doctor, one of the hardest things that you can do is actually to try and tell someone that every drop of alcohol carries a cancer risk, because they have never seen it written anywhere. No warning labels, no awareness campaigns, nothing that could have helped them accept that truth and choose differently. But, of course, my life isn't all emergency rooms and night shifts, and I do try to keep my work life separate from the rest. So outside the hospital, I am also pursuing a master's in health economics. But the funny thing is, when you learn about cost effectiveness and disease burden and how the health budgets keep increasing with no translation into better services, it always circles back to the same point. Building sustainable healthcare means acting at the source, addressing the factors that shape health long before illness appears. And few challenges illustrate this better than alcohol. It is not only a medical issue, but also a social, economic, and generational one. Yes, it's behind liver disease, but also 6 other types of cancer. cancers that fill our wards and that demand long and costly treatments. It fuels cardiovascular disease, one of the toughest battles that medicine fights every single day. But those aren't the only stories that show up at our hospital doors. We see injuries, we see traffic accidents, we see suicide, we see the results of the loss of control. And far too often, we see women harmed by someone who had too much to drink. The economic impact is hard to fully capture. But as an example, in the United Kingdom alone, it was calculated that alcohol harm costs society over £27 billion every year. So yeah, I try to run away from this reality, but even in my health economic classes, it keeps coming back. And these numbers, they are hard to face, but not as hard as the faces behind them and the scars that these experiences leave us with. I don't want to send someone home from the ER only to see them return again and again. I don't want to see health teams stretched to their limits, being forced to grow and evolve, yet constantly pulled back by problems that could have been prevented. And I don't want to see my generation inherit a health system that is too fragile to carry us, simply because we acted to fail on prevention when we had the chance. And I don't want the truth about alcohol to be something that we discover only when it's too late. This isn't a fight that starts now. The European Beating Cancer Plan, as it was said, it was adopted by the European Commission in 2021, already framed alcohol as a major preventable risk factor, alongside tobacco and obesity. It recognized it as a group 1 carcinogen linked to breast, liver, colorectal, and esophageal cancers, and it explicitly states that public awareness of this link is very low and that policy must address that gap. According to the plan, a proposal for alcohol labeling would come under the revision of the regulation on food information to consumers so citizens could make informed choices. But we have a recent implementation study of the Europe Beating Cancer Plan that showed something worrying. These actions on taxation, on labeling, on marketing face significant delays, and the Commission has yet to table proposals for mandatory ingredients lists and health warnings on alcoholic beverages. And now, as Europe shifts its focus towards a cardiovascular health plan, we must ensure that alcohol doesn't quietly slip out of the agenda, because it's not only a cancer issue, it's a heart issue too. So my message for the start of this conversation, as a doctor, as a health economist, as a young European, is clear. We don't need to start from scratch. We just need to act on the evidence that already is there. Because this time, attitude can be the cure. This time, your political courage, your willingness to face the evidence can be the cure. For the patient who keeps coming back to the ER, for the young woman who suffers from breast cancer, for the billions that we lose each year in productivity and competitiveness, and for a generation that has no idea if they'll ever have an healthcare system that they can rely on. So, in a few moments, we are going to move to our panels. One about what prevention truly means, another one about how to empower people to make better choices. This way, we can go on a path about the why directly to the how. But before we begin, I just want to leave you with this question. Will you help us create a more sustainable future for today's youth, for tomorrow's children, and for your own families? Because if we act together, one day, sooner rather than later, we won't have to treat what we could have prevented. Thank you.
Bravo.
Thank you, Antonio and Carl. This was really inspiring. Well, I don't even know what to say after this, but I'm so excited to welcome Ida Stepisnik up here. She is a pharmacy student at the University of Ljubljana and a consultant with the International Youth Health Organization, and she will moderate the next panel. Thank you and welcome, Ida.
Thank you, Hannah, for the kind introduction. I am honored to be the moderator of the first panel. As mentioned, this panel will focus on prevention and why alcohol matters. Unfortunately, Ms. Marta Temido, who were supposed to join us today, won't be, so she sent her apologies. So now let me introduce the rest of the panelists. As they join me on stage, please welcome them with a round of applause. First, I would like to introduce Zala Tomasic, who is a member of the European Parliament, serving on the Committee on the Environment, Public Health and Food Safety, ENVI, and as a substitute member of the Committee on Industry, Research and Energy. And on the... Yes, yes, please. Thank you. She's also a substitute member on the Internal Market and Consumer Protection. She is the member of the European People's Party. In her work, she focuses on issues such as climate and energy policy, the development of clean and competitive industry, food safety, and functioning of the EU single market. She is a strong advocate of technological neutrality, innovation, solutions that enable a sustainable yet realistic green transition. Zala believes that the European Union should create policies that empower people and businesses to grow, not constrain them. Thank you for joining me on stage. Next, I would like to ask Evangelia Savidou. Please join me on stage. And you can also give an applause right now, yes. Eva is a medical doctor from Greece and a junior fellow of the World Academy of Art and Science, a master's candidate in public health policy and development and adolescent health. She serves as the member of the Youth Alcohol Network, of the AVID Action Project, and is a youth advisor at the Joint Action Prevent NCDs. Next, I would like to introduce Lisa Kordos. Please join me on stage. Lisa is a final year medical student from Trinity College Dublin, who has been a member of the WHO Europe AVID Action Youth Network since February. Alongside her studies, she helps run a charity that teaches at-risk youth life-saving skills, lending itself to her dedication to youth advocacy. Next, I would like to introduce Theodora Margineanu, so please join me on stage. Theodora is a fourth-year medical student from Bucharest, Romania. She's also a member of the AVID Action Alcohol Youth Network, while also having a part-time position at the Center of Innovation and e-Health at the Carol Davila University of Medicine and Pharmacy. So now, thank you everyone. Before opening the panel, I would like to understand you, our audience, better. So I would like to ask you now to pick up the cards that we've shared with you before, so the blue and the red ones. And please raise them either based on what you agree with the statement. So blue one if you agree with the statement, or red one if you don't agree. So here's the first statement. Do you associate alcohol with fun? Okay, great. Do you associate alcohol with our culture? Okay, nice, thank you. And the last one, do you associate alcohol with cancer? Okay, I see you all have a lot of knowledge here in the room, so thank you for sharing this. So I think our job here won't be so hard. But now for the opening question for the panelists. You can already relate to the answers that you just saw, but I would like to hear from you in a few short words or a sentence or two. What do you associate most with the alcohol in Europe today? And I will give the floor to Ms. Tomasic first.
Well, I would answer to the first two questions, yes, and the second one with the cancer, if I'm telling you honestly, no. Well, I think now it's gonna change, but I want to be sincere with you. But for me, when I first think of alcohol, I would imagine like a dinner and you have like a bottle of red wine in front of you and you share it with your friends or, you know, your partner.
Thank you so much. I will give the floor now to Eva.
Thank you. So I will also be honest, for long enough I was trapped in the mainstream narrative that alcohol is fun, it's socializing, it's relaxing, it's belonging. But now I see alcohol for what it is, and it's an addictive psychoactive substance that causes multiple harms both in individual and population health, including 7 types of cancer.
Thank you. Maybe we can hear it now from Theodora.
For me, I would associate alcohol with the fear of missing out. It was a hard decision to make in my friend group and to make my friends respect my decision to not consume alcohol. And once I made the decision, I also seen that more and more people in my circles followed me as well, and got the courage to talk more about their experience, what affected them the most, because coming from Romania, most of the young people I've interacted with had a personal bad experience with alcohol, or they know someone close to them that has been impacted by it.
Thank you. Lisa?
I think if you would have asked me this question a couple of years ago, I would have maybe told you that alcohol is something that is associated with fun and that can be enjoyed in moderation. However, my opinion has changed since starting college, meeting people from all walks of life who don't have drinking as part of their culture and who can have just as much fun without alcohol as people who consume alcohol do. Based on my education in medical school, I now know about the consequences of alcohol consumption. And so now with the change in, with the shift in culture and the changing in policies, I would say that I associate alcohol with a change, a hopeful change.
Thank you so much. I hope this gave you a lot of food for thought, and I think we can all relate with these stories that they shared. Maybe now let's move on to the main part, which is why alcohol matters and prevention, especially here. So let me just start with telling you a reflection from one of the events. So at the high-level conference on the future of health union held in Brussels in March 2024, Belgian Health Minister Frank van der Broeke emphasized that the EU's responsibility in shaping a healthier environment, and he stated the following: prevention is very much about consumption. Consumption is about what is on the market. When you say market, you say EU. So we've heard that prevention is closely tied to what is on the market, but also how alcohol is seen in our culture. Europe is a region where alcohol is widely available and often considered normal. Both of these factors influence how young people grow up and how risks are understood. So this is my question for the panelists. In Europe, where alcohol is widely available and deeply embedded in our culture, what role should EU play in shaping policies that balance personal choice while protecting public health? So should alcohol be regulated like tobacco, or remain a matter of individual responsibility? So maybe I would like to ask Theodora, what are your thoughts on this?
Thank you, Aida, for the question. So I think that in Europe, alcohol occupies a unique space, both as a social tradition and a major public health concern. While personal choice is central to European values, the evidence leaves no room for doubt. No level of alcohol consumption is safe for health and cancer risk. The challenge, therefore, is not about eliminating choice, but ensuring that the choice is informed, equitable, and that it doesn't come at the cost of population health. Coming from Romania, I've personally seen how alcohol consumption is woven into our social fabric and even normalized. We have one of the highest rates of alcohol consumption per capita in Europe. But behind this cultural acceptance lies a very different reality. For instance, one issue that we still don't talk about enough is how alcohol contributes to domestic violence. Many women and children are among the most affected, but they often become invisible victims of alcohol-related harm. If we want a healthier Europe, prevention cannot be reactive. It must be intergenerational, innovative, and rooted in the idea that protecting health improves, not limits, our freedom. Thus, Europe should take a stronger coordinating role, much like it did for tobacco, by promoting evidence-based measures. However, regulation should not simply copy the tobacco model, because unlike tobacco, moderate alcohol consumption remains socially accepted, and oftentimes its health risks aren't even acknowledged by the general population. This is why I believe that it's necessary to balance regulation with education and support systems, empowering citizens to make healthier decisions while also safeguarding the most vulnerable. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Teodora. Now I would like to ask Ms. Tomasic, could you share what is your view on this?
Well, firstly, I'm going to say that in about 80%, I agree with everything that's been said, but I'll focus on the other 20 to keep this discussion more interesting and not focus on the parts that we agree on. I think prevention is important. I think raising awareness is crucial, but I don't think marketing is the problem, because I don't think alcohol needs marketing for people to buy it. Just like drugs don't need marketing for people to use it, but they do. I think where we're lacking is marketing about what alcohol can do to you, what alcohol abuse is, what are the signs of alcohol abuse, because with many of the youth, they don't even know they're abusing it. So I think this is where our main focus should be, on the awareness raising campaigns. Then secondly, alcohol is already regulated, like we heard. But yeah, I don't think we can compare it to tobacco completely. We can discuss if we need more regulations and so on. But the thing is that, there is a traditional cultural part of it. You do have small wineries. My dad produces some of the spirits at home, It is very local and so on. So it is about, like Manuela said at the beginning, it's not about banning a choice. But I do think we need to do more about learning about it. Even at schools, we're not taught about these things at schools. Then I know you're going to have a discussion about labeling before. And of course, things that could harm your health should be labeled accordingly. But that you understand, politicians, where we come from, there are many things like that. Should fast food be labeled as dangerous as well? Processed sugar, caffeine. There are a lot of things like that. So I'm not giving you an answer here. I'm just saying that there are a lot of things we do need to think about it. But I do think that at the end of the day, we also need to talk about the underlying conditions of why people abuse alcohol, and we need to resolve that. We need to create a world where a youth that feels it has mental health issues doesn't turn to alcohol, that the alcohol abuse doesn't start. We need to create those measures in our society, be it more mental health actions or whatever, because I think that when you start abusing alcohol, just simply putting a label on a bottle, it's not going to help you. I think we need structural changes, and we need to have discussions of how to come to that, so that the youth is going to, or not just the youth, I mean, alcohol abuse is a problem with all ages, but it often starts, I would say, in college, like we heard before. So I think those are all the big discussions that we need to have. And just, I know I have to end it, I know I have to finish, but I want to say that because the title of this was also how the youth can participate in the EU politics, I can tell you as a youth politician that absolutely the best way to do that is to be elected. Because then you actually do have a seat at the table and you do have a vote, so it's not just that, you come here, you talk about it, and then you leave. So I would highly encourage you to get engaged in politics, because this is the policies we're discussing. It's going to affect our generation more than anyone. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Ms. Tomasic. Eva, can I give you the floor now? What do you think about this?
Thank you, Aida. We often hear that drinking is an individual responsibility and a personal choice, but is it really a free one? Let's think about it. From an early age, we are surrounded by visible and invisible, bold and more subtle alcohol marketing. I have memories and experiences of school trips, school parties, even with my teachers, and an educational school visit at a wine producer as part of a biochemistry class. I see alcohol representations equating it with fun, success, and belonging when I watch a movie or series, when I open my phone just to scroll on my social media, or when I go to a social event or a conference. I've seen it everywhere, from local stores to airports. Before most of us are even able to make our first conscious decision about drinking, our environment has already shaped how we think and act about it. Our so-called personal choice is heavily engineered by and for commercial and for-profit interests. That's why it's not enough, it's not acceptable to say it's up to the individual. The EU has the responsibility and the power to change the environment of choice so that people, especially young people, are not constantly targeted with cheap, aggressively marketed products. The EU must ensure that all people, regardless of background or privilege, grow up in supportive, health-promoting environments, not ones shaped by industry influence. We know what we have to do. Tobacco control proved it. Increase excise taxes, limit availability, and ban advertising. And we have all the evidence that these measures can bring visible results at population scale in less than a year, less than 1 year. But they are planted when only few countries act upon them. Real personal choice means informed and conscious choice, because real choice requires freedom from manipulation, not just freedom to buy. Thank you.
Thank you, Eva. Lisa, you have now a very hard job. You have to be the last one of this panel, but I'm sure you will do great. Please, I'll give the floor to you.
Thank you so much, Ida. Some really interesting points have been made so far, so thank you all for your contributions. Traditionally, alcohol consumption is imbued in many aspects of culture. It is propagated in advertising campaigns and in media. However, the consequences of alcohol consumption are unequivocally significant. Young people are uniquely impacted by this culture and its consequences, with a quarter of youth deaths in the European region being attributed to alcohol consumption, according to the WHO. Young people have lived experiences of the impacts of alcohol, whether those experiences are personal, via their peers, at their workplace, or their communities. Young people are also the most susceptible to the influences of the alcohol industry via social media, targeted marketing, and indeed policies. However, despite being impacted by alcohol culture and consumption, it is seldom that they are given the opportunities to have their voices heard. I believe the EU has a role to play in facilitating the inclusion of young people in the conversation by giving them a space at the policy-making table due to their experiences and their ability to bridge the knowledge gap. It's also great importance to have them seated at the table so that they can build capacity and agency in policymaking. An example of this is related to my first experience with the Youth Network. It was right around the time that I joined that the decision was being made by the Irish government to roll back alcohol warning labels in Ireland, and I was deeply frustrated. I, along with many Youth Network members, were involved in reaching out to Taoiseach Micheál Martin, imploring him to consider the importance of putting prevention at the heart of policymaking. Although sadly we were not successful in convincing him, it was the first time that I was actively involved in reaching out to a politician and voicing my concerns. And it made me realize the importance of young people having their voices heard. Thanks to the most up-to-date research, we now know that alcohol is just as harmful as tobacco. With the implementation of the right policies that are evidence-based and take youth voices into consideration, consumers will have adequate access to the information that they need in order to make informed decisions about the products that they are consuming.
Thank you so much. So maybe just to sum up in a few words. So first, Theodora stressed that no level of alcohol consumption is safe, yet awareness remains low, and how Europe must strengthen prevention through coordinated policies, education, and protection of the vulnerable. Then Ms. Tomasic has stressed the importance of introducing awareness-raising campaigns, and she also highlighted how we need to address the underlying issues of alcohol consumption, like mental health. She also encouraged all of us to engage further in politics. Eva has really emphasized how our choices are shaped long before we make them. She called for building environments that support health, not profit. Lisa also highlighted that young people are both impacted by and capable of transforming Europe's alcohol culture, and it's time that they have a seat at the policymaking table. So I hope you got a lot from this panel, but I would also like to ask the closing question if the hosting MEPs would also maybe like to respond in a few short words along with the rest of the panel, if that's okay with you. Okay, perfect. So maybe for the closing question, please could you in a few words very shortly respond to this? Having heard this, what change do you hope to see? And what are you willing to contribute to see the change when it comes to alcohol and prevention in Europe? So now I would first like to give the floor to Lisa.
Thank you. So what I'd hope to see more of is youth engagement at an EU level, and it's great to see that we're being encouraged to pursue politics. And I'd like to see more collaboration between young people and politicians, as we've seen in the Youth Network previously. The simple fact that we're in this room right now having this conversation gives me a lot of hope that this can be achieved.
Thank you, Lisa. Maybe I can give the floor to Ms. Tomasic next.
Well, thank you. First, I don't want to say like your summary was better than ChatGPT, you know, like how you managed to get all of that in such a short amount of time. So I'm very impressed by that. Secondly, like I said before, I think the MEPs, all of us that are in this room are already I'm going to continue doing this work, and I'm sure all of us will, to engage in this. Like I said before, awareness-raising campaigns to talk about it, and also to, well, I actually kind of already answered this question before, engaged with youth, but I would add to Lisa's points, not only that youth is something you cross off your checklist, that you did meet with them as, you know, some interest group, but the engagement and the impact is there, that there is a follow-up, that they are actively, active participants, and not just something that as a politician you say, you know what, I consulted with the youth, this work. So my fight is with this, and I'm gonna tell you that like when I was elected in Slovenia, that was big news, even though I just turned 30. So, you know, according to Slovenian law, I'm no longer young. But I really want to see the change in politics also when it comes to this, that when someone who's 20 years of age something and is elected, that's not news, but that's our reality and something completely normal. Because I think with that, the youth voice is going to be heard the most.
Thank you. Mr. Andriukaitis, what change do you hope to see, and what are you willing to contribute?
Colleagues, I will be very brief. P, 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 P. 4 Ps. You know what does it mean? Prevention, promotion, protection of health, and participation. And participation means that we need to invite you all to participate in different directions, because now in front of us, issues about mandatory labeling. It will be a very difficult one. In front of us, a difficult situation with European Commission to encourage Commission to propose it. In front of us, a very difficult challenge to achieve something at Council level, at European Council's level and Council of State, heads of states and governments, where it would be completely blocked. Can you imagine situation, a discussion about excise duties, a raised level of excise duties? Excise duties were introduced in 1992. Till now, no one attempt to change something was without results. I did it 2 times being commissioner and never achieved. In this room, we see like-minded colleagues. But please keep in mind, fight on prevention, because we all know prevention is better than cure. It's a word. But when we propose to establish intergroup in this house, intergroup on prevention strategy, we do not achieve results. Now we have interest group, and secretariat is chaired by Florence. Interest group only. I am trying to present, look, can you imagine to have comprehensive prevention strategy at EU level? Because all these factors are the same. Tobacco, alcohol, salt, sugar, something. I spent a lot of it. It means now, that's up to you to press politicians to do actions to see that we can do a lot more, in a more effective way. I am very young, but it will be my last mandate. I will pass my mandate to younger generation.
Thank you so much. Maybe Eva can go next?
Yes, thank you so much. And it's really great to hear and have such a strong advocate on our side. I mean, it's really empowering for us. And indeed, in order to be able to do our work as young people, but also as myself as a medical doctor and a young public health professional, we need an environment that supports us in that over any interest of the industry. And we need to remember that health protection is not a choice, it's a fundamental right. And what I ask, and I think what we ask here, is that it be treated as such.
Thank you. Maybe Ms. Ripa, what change do you hope to see and what are you willing to contribute?
Yes, actually, I hope that we get rid of many myths around alcohol, because one myth that is still ongoing is that a glass of red wine in the evening is very good because it has so many tannins inside. And what I learned in the Baker Committee, and astonished myself, that professors presented that every drop of alcohol, every drop, already increases the risk for cancer. So this myth I was just telling about is something that we definitely should get rid of, and that is why I think that awareness raising is very important, but we need, what I already said, go from knowledge to action, that we need legislative action here, but we also definitely need more health education, especially for young people, that it's not only about fun, but it's also a big, big health risk.
Thank you so much. And now the last one goes to Theodora.
I really wish to see a shift in public perception from treating alcohol as a private matter to recognizing it as a collective health responsibility. And I really hope that I could empower fellow young people to challenge cultural norms, because this conversation is bigger than just you and I. It's also about all of the people that are suffering because of diseases that we can prevent. Thank you.
Thank you so much for all of your wonderful contributions. This panel is closing, but it doesn't mean that the discussion on prevention and why alcohol matters is finished. It has only started. So I implore all of you here today to continue talking about it later today, tomorrow, with your families, with your friends, with your work colleagues. Change takes time. It requires a constant spark that you light each time you start these conversations. Hearing our speakers' commitments, I'm sure the change is imminent. Thank you. This is Jan.
Thank you. Thank you, Ida, and our lovely panelists. I think we already laid out quite a bit, quite interesting things that we have to talk about. We talked about labeling, we talked about young people and their role in that. And now we will actually move on to a keynote presentation given by Eva and Egle, who is coming up now, titled Beyond the Label, What QR Codes Really Say. So they will present the findings from the Youth Alcohol Network study, Beyond the Label, analyzing the presence and information behind the QR codes on alcohol containers in 13 European countries. We've just heard people speaking about QR code labels and what those actually mean. And now I invite you to listen to Egle and Eva present their findings.
So, good evening, everyone, members of the European Parliament, colleagues and friends. I know what you're thinking, a research presentation. Well, let me stop you right there. I promise no death by PowerPoint today, no 10 bullet lists, and no 200-word graphs. Because today we are not just talking looking at numbers. We are looking at the labels, or more precisely, what hides behind them. Those little black and white squares that are supposed to make our lives easier, unless you're holding a wine bottle in one hand, your phone in the other, and trying not to look like a technical challenged millennial. So today we are gonna try to see what's really hiding behind them. If you could go to the next slide, yes. Well, we can all agree consumers deserve to know what they're drinking. Not just the romantic talk about notes of oak and vanilla, but the real facts, calories, ingredients, and health information. But as we dug deeper, we noticed a worrying trend. The assumption that digital labels can simply replace physical ones. Now, I love technology as much as anyone, but when your diner guest has to find Wi-Fi just to check the calories in the wine, maybe we've gone a little bit too far. QR codes were supposed to make information easier, more accessible, yet in practice they often do the opposite. They shone down comparisons, exclude people without the smartphones or data plans, and let's be honest, usually lead to just more marketing and not meaningful health information. That's not transparency, that's just marketing with extra steps. So let's set the scene. Under EU regulation, alcohol above 1.2% is exempt from showing nutrition or ingredients. Then in 2021, new rules allowed wines to use QR codes for this information. And now a wine package proposal for 2025 plans to expand the QR codes even more, without an impact assessment. Because who needs data when you have digital optimism, right? Our question was simple. Before we let QR codes replace labels, do we actually know what consumers are getting? We can go to the next slide. Are we actually getting it? So a study showed that 27% of surveyed Europeans claim that they would scan a QR code next to a health warning label. But actually only 0.26% did so. That's not even 0.5% in the pie chart. And none of us need to be mathematicians to say that the difference is huge. And so we asked, how common are QR codes on alcohol labels? What do we actually show? Are we accessible, credible, or just confusing? And most importantly, are we helping people or hiding information? And we weren't trying to ruin anyone's Friday's night. We just wanted to know if the label on your wine bottle tells you the truth or sends you on a digital treasure hunt. We didn't just Google it. We didn't use ChatGPT for it. We went out there into 13 different countries, 25 cities, 34 stores, and scanned over 1,800 alcohol products, every single QR code. So yes, we spend hours in liquid stores, sometimes getting dirty looks from security guys, but all in the name of science. Every QR code was scanned, every website was visited, even the ones that asked for our age. Spoiler alert, many didn't. And so what did we discover? A third of products had a QR code on it. Most were on the back, where no one looks unless they're bored. 61% didn't even explain what the QR code was for. It was just there. And for the ones where we could access the QR code and actually scan it, 75% of websites were in the local language only, which is not accessible to some people. 36% made you click on yes, I'm over 18, because of course no one ever lied on that pop-up. So accessibility, not great. Transparency, even less. But let's see what we actually showed. So 46% just promoted the brand. 42% gave some nutritional information, 42% also have some health content, and 41% listed ingredients. So basically, if you were lucky, you get a little bit of health information. If not, you just get a virtual commercial how natural your vodka is. We even found some sites which try to mix the health information with marketing, like alcohol can cause cancer, but here's our new limited edition bottle for you. So there are some examples of the issues we found through digital labeling. Some labels with QR codes had missing information. As you can see in the picture, that's just something we found. 0 calories, 0 ingredients, which is just misleading. Others showed health advice next to glossy brand imagery, and a few listed industry-funded health resources alongside scientific information. So it's basically like asking the wolf to write a guide on sheep safety. If you go to the next slide, you can even, no? Okay, so basically there was a video here where we even showed how pressing on a QR code, you get in this information, how the alcohol company is trying to tell you how to drink responsibly. And once you press on the PDF on responsible drinking, it just shows you the error card saying 404, this page is not found.
So, in our study, we found that only 1/3 of alcoholic beverages feature QR codes, but even in that case, it's really difficult to scan them, or they frequently lack clear explanation about their purpose. And almost 2/3 of the QR codes direct users to the company's website with no age verification. And even when health information can be accessed through QR code, it is often incomplete, overshadowed by prominent branding, cited from sources funded by the alcohol industry, and potentially misleading. So I think we can all agree that QR codes are not sufficient. But what is currently on the label is also not sufficient. So a new paper that is currently considered for publication. In this study, we aim to see what happens with the health warning labels that exist on the alcohol products across the 13 European countries. So we investigated 1,636 alcohol products across 23 cities and 32 stores. Almost 70% of them displayed some form of health warning, and you can see that most of them are on beers, followed by spirits and then wines. But those warnings were mainly targeted at specific at-risk population groups and not the general public. You can see that the vast majority of those health warnings concern pregnancy, drink driving, age restrictions. Of course, we also see some claims about responsible drinking. But when it comes to population-level health harms associated with alcohol, something that concerns us all, only 0.3% of the products featured such health warnings. And most of them are using a pictogram format, followed by some of the health warnings that featured a text. So, what does this mean for policy? I mean, we see that digital labeling is expanding faster than evidence or regulation. But we need to secure people's right to immediate evidence-based information at purchase. Digital labels cannot replace on-label nutrition or health warnings. And in order to be effective and efficient, we need a standardized EU framework to define what QR codes can contain. And of course, public health oversight and independent monitoring to be sure that all the guidelines are followed as they must be. Digital innovation should not replace transparency. It should only strengthen it. And it's the responsibility, I think it's a main responsibility of the European Parliament to secure consumers' right to clear, accessible and trustworthy information. And I really do hope that by this point our results have convinced you about this. So, we call on the European Parliament to maintain on-label health warnings for alcoholic beverages, ensuring clear, specific and evidence-based health information, including those on cancer and other alcohol harms to health. We need established harmonized standards for on-labeling warning design, size, and placement to guarantee visibility and comprehension across all markets. The QR code use must be monitored, and QR codes should be used as complementary and not as a replacement for essential on-label information. We need a harmonized, non-commercial, and evidence-based health content behind QR codes. We call on the European Parliament to protect consumers' data and all people's right to accessible information, and include us, youth, and diverse consumers' perspectives in labeling, design, and review. So, we are doing our part. Who of you is joining us?
Thank you, Egle and Eva. I'm so sorry, I forgot to introduce Egle, but as you heard, she's an amazing scientist. She's a medical student and a research specialist at the Lithuanian University of Health Science. And I think we've seen a lot of great expertise here on the study, and we've really seen the numbers, how important it is to have clear and mandatory warning on the bottle and not behind a QR code. And now it's my honor to reintroduce to you Antonio, who will actually lead the next panel on policy blind spots and opportunities. Welcome.
So hello everyone. I really hope that you liked me because I'm back and I have the real honor to introduce what I really think that's going to be a great panel. So with us online, we are going to have MEP Cristina Garda, which is a member of the European Parliament from Italy with the Greens European Free Alliance Group, also a member of the Agri Committee. So we hope that we can present her video. And now I also call to the stage Dr. Matthias Heitman. He is a Scottish hepatologist and advisor to the Scottish Chief Medical Officer and part of the European Association for the Study of the Liver's Policy Committee. Please, a big round of applause. I also welcome to the stage Stella, a youth representative. Stella Gausch is a medical doctor from Austria, now pursuing a master's in public health. She contributes to youth networks such as the Avid Action Youth Alcohol Network and the Youth Advisory Group of the JA Prevent NCD. Let's give a, yeah. Then we have Rada, another youth representative that is a medical student from Bulgaria and a youth advocate. She is part of the Youth Advisory Group for JA Prevent NCDs and Avid Action Youth Alcohol Network. And lastly, I would really like to welcome to the stage MEP Aurelius Veriga, a member of the European Parliament from Lithuania with the European Conservatives and Reformists Group. But before we start having a conversation with all of these great panelists, I still want to go back to the amazing presentation about QR codes and labeling. And I would like to begin with a simple yet important question that is not for the panelists, but for everyone in the room. So you guys can use the cards that you have. And do you believe that alcohol should have proper labeling, just like any other food product that we put into our bodies? You know, I'm going to be a little bit off script here because I really wanted to use this as an introduction as to how this was a diverse conversation. But sometimes, apparently, when you actually show people the power of the knowledge that they might have, they tend to change their minds and actually want to have that information on their hands. But it is still a broad conversation about transparency, about health, and how about the Europe defines its priorities. So for this panel specifically, I would like to begin with a little bit of context. So across the European Union, there is still no obligation, as we know, to include health warnings on alcoholic beverages, unlike tobacco or other food products that pose clear risks to human health. We know that labeling is not just a public health issue. We know that it reflects how Europe balances commercial interests with the public's right to know. And, whether the Union is ready to align its alcohol policies with a broader health and sustainability ambitions, or including Europe's beating cancer plan. But at the same time, alcohol labeling was actually discussed in two different parliamentary committees, and in totally different ways. So we have in the Health Committee, the issue was raised under the Europe Beating Cancer Plan, of course, as we stated, leaving actually many people nowadays wondering why the labeling proposal has still not been published. Meanwhile, at the beginning of this new mandate, the Agriculture Committee is preparing to vote on wine packaging rules. Actually, just one day before our event tomorrow, as part of the so-called wine package, which includes provisions on labeling and packaging that could make information about alcohol content and health risks less visible to consumers, a direction that many public health experts see as undermining transparency and the spirit of prevention that is promoted in the Europe Beating Cancer Plan. So this contrast between the two committees actually shows that something that we present to you as something that should be so straightforward in principle remains politically sensitive and fragmented. And that's what we are here to talk about now. So we've been talking about alcohol labeling, as we know. It's an issue that at first glance seems simple, but it really reveals how Europe sets its priorities. So I would like to open the discussion by hearing the perspectives on labeling. And to start this conversation, we actually have a video message from MEP Guada showing the policy-making perspective and responding to the question, how can Parliament help bring coherence to the labeling debate, making sure that protecting citizens, especially young people, comes before institutional or sectoral divisions?
Well, I wish you a really great evening to all of you. And then I'm really sorry, I can't be there with you in person this evening, but at this time of the day, I have to switch back to my duties as a mom. So let me start by saying that I personally share all the concerns about the lack of serious labeling in the affected alcoholic beverage, and wine in particular still remain an exception when it comes to transparency and health information. So thank you. Thank you for raising this question, which couldn't be more timely. Tomorrow, the Agriculture Committee will actually vote on the wine package, a key legislative file where I'm the shadow rapporteur for the Greens and which directly touches on this issue. This experience is a very concrete example of how complex and politically sensitive this debate is. In the Agri Committee, the balance between public health concerns and difficulties faced by a sector under pressure from declining consumption, from climate change, tends to lean very clearly in favor of the sector, as you can imagine. And this makes everything more difficult, especially for a group like mine, the Greens, who often find themselves defending positions that might be more broadly shared in the other committees, but in Agri, where we are quite isolated. A large part of the debate has focused on the de-alcoholized wine. For us Greens, it was crucial to maintain a clear 0.0% category and to replace alcohol light or alcohol low with alcohol reduced as the least misleading and most responsible wording. We also fought hard to preserve the 30% threshold to reduce alcohol wine, and we managed to keep it. And it was really hard, but we dealt with it. Unfortunately, we couldn't convince the other groups to maintain the wording list of ingredients and nutritional information directly on the label, but at least we managed to ensure that the QR code will only contain mandatory information and not a mix with promotional content that would only confuse consumers. Overall, this shows that when Agri is left alone in these debates, we often end up aiming for and defending the least bad option rather than a truly coherent one. That's why it would be essential to have the constant involvement of other committees like Sant on such important matters to make sure that health, consumer and youth perspective are properly reflected from the start. Only by working together across committees can this Parliament deliver rules that are fair to producers, clear to consumers, and consistent with our broader public health goals.
Thank you so much. A big round of applause for MEP Guardo.
First of all,
Okay. So now we turn to our panelists that are here with us. And I'm going to guide this a little bit because there are some things that even I want to understand. And so I would focus my first question to you, Dr. Heitman. As a hepatologist, how do you see the role of labeling in helping people make informed choices about alcohol consumption? And what kind of information should citizens have access to when they are buying or consuming alcohol?
Does this work? Oh, sorry. I've got a bit of a cold, sorry. So I'm a liver doctor, I'm a hepatologist, and important to know is that patients with liver disease come from the most deprived part of the population. So compared to any other disease, in liver disease, the most deprived 10% have got 5 times the mortality and morbidity from liver disease compared to the least deprived. So the population we need to give the information is very deprived. And that means a lot of my patients haven't even got, if they have a phone, they can't even get it charged or have it charged all the time. So we can't really expect them to look at QR codes. So we need to make it easy for them to make the right choice. At the moment, we're making it easy for the deprived people and for children, young people. We've seen this morning that a lot of kids start drinking and binge drink very young. And there's a study in Glasgow where they looked at how many advertisements kids see on the way to school in the most deprived compared to the least deprived areas, and it's shocking. It's multiple times of what very deprived children see every day. So we need to make it easy to make the right choices, and that needs on the bottle labeling, which is very clear. No QR codes, and yes, it does need the amount of alcohol in the drink, but also the calories. A lot of people are not aware that when they drink alcohol, they drink a lot of calories. And it needs to be reliable. And with QR codes, I'm very worried that it's easy to manipulate. And alcohol companies only do things unless they have to do it or unless it's profitable. And with regards to the economics, I think it's important. I think we can't afford to not do the best buys and quick buys in this economic area. It was mentioned that we need the money and it's expensive to change labeling and all these things, but I think we can't afford not to do it, because after all, we talked about profit and policies and profit, and in a way it's people who make profit or create profit, and we need healthy people to maintain all the things that we want to do, like schooling, teaching, and everything.
Thank you so much for your answer. Now I would write this more to a youth perspective, so maybe I would ask this question to Stella. Do you believe that labeling can play a role in shaping young people's health and daily lives? And if so, why do you think that such an apparently reasonable measure has been so difficult to advance politically?
Thank you. All right.
Is it now turned on? Okay, perfect. It was off earlier. So thank you for the question. I think, so to first of all answer, yes, I do think that this would be really important in shaping young people's habits, because we're already asking adults to make informed choices and to think about what they're doing when they're purchasing alcohol. But how can we have the same ambitions to youth? Think about the age that people start drinking at. You have people who are maybe 12, 13, which are children, who are starting to consume alcoholic beverages. This is a very high expectation and ambition to their own health literacy, to be giving them the responsibility at that point to be making the right choice. So I think we need to make sure that the labeling is clear so that it's understood by anybody of any age, as much as we can, that this is not a health conscious choice. I think what was mentioned also earlier was the fact that, you know, young people's brains are still developing until the age of 25. They don't have the opportunity to critically question the information they're receiving as much as adults do at that point. So it needs to be clear, and it needs to be not hidden behind a QR code. It needs to be very on the nose. To go a little bit instead of the second question that you asked, why it's been so hard to advance this, I think we have a tendency to frame this as a very health-focused narrative. We like to say, you know, alcohol isn't healthy, and, you know, we've spoken about it mostly through this lens today. But I think this is actually, we're actually inhibiting ourselves by sticking to this very strict health narrative. I think we need to speak a language that can make sense to everybody who has an interest in society. The health outcomes, the adverse health outcomes through alcohol do not only cause just those, they don't only cause disease and death, they also cause loss of productivity, almost usually before the health outcomes. They cause down the lane, they will cause economic losses, they will cause loss of competitiveness. So I think instead of framing this as something that's only about health, we need to take a step back and look at where can we all communicate on the same level, and how can we make sure that this is an issue that is of concern to everybody, which it should be, we might say. So yeah, I think that's what I would answer here. I think we need to make sure that things are understandable to everyone, whether that be to youth or whether that be to the person sitting next to us on the subway in the morning.
That's a great and, you know, real emotional conclusion, I think so. So thank you. What I do think that we are missing, though, is a policy-making perspective. So now I turn my question to Mr. Aurelius, and I'd like you to come to you next, building on MEP's Guarda's remarks, actually, and in practical terms, what could the Parliament do to bridge the gap between committees and maybe move towards a more unified, health-driven approach to alcohol labeling that may protect citizens?
Thank you for the question. Maybe straight answer would be to accept the rules that would impose the labeling. That would be a natural answer to your question. What could the Parliament do? But I would, let's say, ask you, let's imagine that if labeling is so complicated, so what's then with even more strict regulation, like age requirements, selling hours, taxes that are even more powerful than just the labeling? And maybe to help all of us to understand what needs to be done. First of all, we have to understand what kind of beings we are. Are we rational or emotional? More. Good question. There are some researchers here who tend to believe that they are more rational than emotional. I would have to disappoint you. We are more emotional than rational, usually in our normal day life. And that's the answer to you when you approach politicians. Advertisement is created to build or create good emotions. The scientific data and good articles are creating good emotions mostly for the researchers who wrote them down, but not for the overall society or even for politicians. So understanding that we are more emotional beings. You have to create stories. There is a famous quote that is somehow associated with Stalin, which is never proven, that the death of one person is a tragedy. The death of millions is just the statistics. So that's what we're dealing with. And in Lithuania, it took some years to wait till the moment until the drunk policeman killed 3 kids on the way home. Drunk policeman, 3 kids from the way home from the high school to start political debates on alcohol policy. Then it happened that 2 drunk parents throw their children to the well. They sank because they were too drunk to understand what they are doing. It took a child to be killed by intoxicated, drugs-intoxicated parents to accept legislation that would really protect children. But again, it was about stories, about the human stories. And till the moment we will only talk about the data, numbers, evidence-based, we have to have it. It's necessary to prove, but it's about storytelling. So that's my message to you. It's not just about data. We all know the data. There are thousands and thousands of publications. The WHO says for decades what should be done. The question is how it should be done. So we have to learn from those who are the most advanced, and this is alcohol industry. We have to learn from them. The strategic, the tactics, what they do. We have to learn from them. They are the best in this way, so we have to do just the same thing that they do.
Thank you so much for your remarks. And now I would actually, and because we are short on time, to conclude this panel, and I would like to turn into a question of next steps. Maybe because this is actually related to being young, but I'm a really concrete person, so I think that's how we should hand up this conversation. And so I'd like to particularly hear 2 voices in this room. A youth one and one from the policymaking perspective, because as we can see, who do we listen to? Because we hear that sometimes some industries are doing something right, but we have all of this data that we have just presented that we bring. How do we measure this, right? We see that people want to be informed. We see that we have the data. So how do we scale this? And so I would like to hear first from our youth representative, Rava, as one of the populations most exposed to alcohol, social and health risks. And then I would extend this one question to the MEPs that are here with me to share the policymaking perspective. So what do you think that should happen next? What steps would you like to see taken to ensure that alcohol labeling truly advances as a matter of public health and intergenerational responsibility?
So if we all agree that alcohol labeling is important, then the next steps are completely clear. We need to make it real, visible, and effective for everyone. And as a person that is grown up in Eastern European country, I can see alcohol as a part of our everyday life, from family gatherings to social events, and people still doesn't know the health effect. So for me, labeling could make huge impact in the public health. Every day are dying around 3 million people per year worldwide. In Europe, 1 of 10 deaths is among people aged between 15 and 49 years old because of alcohol, and yet alcohol doesn't have any clear warnings. We have great examples where labeling actually works. For example, the tobacco warnings on the cigarette packages, where there were clear and visible messages, and smoking rates really fell down. So actually we can see that labeling truly could change the behavior of the people. So what we should do next? For me, the next step is kind of simple. We need simple, consistent labeling rules across all countries. We need to have access to the same information about the calories, about the effects of the body, about the risk, what type of cancer is including when it's affected by alcohol, what type of liver diseases, what type of heart problems. People should not guess searching Google or searching ChatGPT. We live our lives in a digital world flooded with marketing, misinformation, and manipulation. So if truth can always
reaches on wine, then at least it could be written at the bottle. We deserve the facts. The second thing that I could see as the next step is that young people must be part of the process and need to be engaged in the whole thing, because young people, as me, are most affected by alcohol marketing and most likely to form lifelong drinking habits. And this is why I think the NGOs and the governments need to have youth advisory panels that are including diverse group of people, and they could help actually design the labels and actually speak to our generation in short, clean, and relatable language. We also need to make sure that these policies are backed by real actions, and we need to run educational campaigns to explain why this label matters, especially in countries like Bulgaria, where alcohol is a major part of our social, economic life. So this is why I think tomorrow vote in the Agriculture Committee is really important, because it gives chance to Europe to show that the public health is an important topic in the European Parliament, and that the next step towards a future where everyone has the right to know what they consume. So, thank you.
Thank you so much. Maybe now I would drive the same question about what next steps could or should be taken to MEP Aurelius.
Okay. I will not repeat what you have very correctly said, which sounds very natural. It should be done, but the question is how. So first, you and we have to be flexible and creative. What you do when you drive a car and you see a wall in front of you, you just hit the wall. That's one way. Or you can be a little bit more creative and go around. So in European Parliament, now when you start to talk about public health, it is a problem, I can tell you. But what you can tell now in the Parliament, you can talk now about competitiveness. And one thing that is profitable for one part of the industry is harming very much other industries. Nobody wants drunk workers to be at work because it decreases productivity, it creates, the work losses, so on and so on. So competitiveness. Then defense. If we want young people to serve in the military, and if they are unhealthy till the age of 18, how they would serve. So it's the defense issue. So when we talk about the policy, we have to be flexible, creative, and adjust to the topics that are relevant to that moment, not to be sticked just to the health agenda, but to adjust the health agenda to other agendas that are on the table that our politicians are discussing now. So that's one of the ways. Then my ask to you is to think how to create a goose skin for the politicians. I'm a PhD in public health. But most of my time when I think about alcohol, I don't think about scientific articles. I remember the book, The Fatal Link, that is about the alcohol consumption during pregnancy and shootings in American schools. This is about emotions. So you have to think how to make a goose skin for the politicians, for them, to become emotional. And that would help more than hundreds of articles. So that's about what could be done in today's life here in the Parliament. Thank you.
Thank you so much. And maybe now I would ask for MEP Vytenis Andriakaitis to answer.
I couldn't agree more. Can I tell you a short story? When I was Minister of Health of the Republic of Lithuania in 2013, we faced difficulties in front of tobacco directive adoption. And I decided to deliver a speech in the European Parliament. At that time, Philip Morris and others spent 16 million euros only touching member states and inviting them to have events and to provide one glass of red wine and so on. And the European Parliament stopped once again stopped this final vote. And then second, I was responsible as chair of the council. And they delivered emotional speech. I told members of the Parliament, I am speaking on behalf of those today's 500,000 people who died because of their used consumption. They are now have no chance to say to you words. I am saying words. And then I used my two examples for my family. My two brothers were dying because of cancer and because of tobacco. And I win this battle because I was emotional. And my message, as very good as Aurelius, my friend, told me, yes, the same message now. We need to use emotions because emotion can help us, to change situation. Thanks a lot.
Thank you so much. And now I would extend this question also to Manuela Ripa.
Thank you very much. Labeling is something that I'm dealing already in the second legislative term now here in the European Parliament. I firmly believe in the informed consumer. So I think that really labels are essential. In the last legislation, I was rapporteur for detergents. There we also had the thing that they wanted to put everything, QR codes, everything in the QR codes. And I said, no, that does not work because you have a hurdle here. People have to get out their phones, they have to look at it, and they don't do it. So we need the most important information on allergies, on health risks, everything on the product directly so that people can see it and especially also very important for older people that it's readable because nowadays it's so small printed that you can't even read it. So we put this in the legislation and I think really that it's crucial because in order to have informed people, you need also to have labels and of course emotions work. So it's both, it's emotions and knowledge that will help us. And so I think we need legislation on labeling and we also need legislation, no advertisement of harmful products. Thank you.
Thank you so much. And I could end this panel up, but I actually do have some time left, which doesn't usually happen much. And I was thinking, yeah, if industry is so good at presenting evidence, then let's let real science also have a chance. So I would extend this question as well to Dr. Mathis.
Okay. I'm not sure whether this is real science, but we've heard that we need to tell stories. And I've got a brief one, which is positive. So we've heard a lot of people dying because of alcohol. But I want to tell a quick story from a young girl I saw who just learned to read and read out from the cigarette package of her mum, "Smoking kills," and asked, "Mum, what does that mean?" And you could see that the mum, for the first time, probably thought about what she was doing in front of her child. Thank you.
Thank you so much for that. And yeah, I do think that statistics are one thing, but stories do work the most because most of us know stories when it comes to alcohol. So what I do think that we can bring home from this panel is actually this idea to think about the stories, to try and feel what our friends, what our colleagues have actually felt in these kinds of situations and see that we have a saying for this as well. What is clear after this panel is that citizens, and I think especially young generations, deserve accessible, visible information and policies that are shaped by evidence and intergenerational responsibility. As it was said, the conversation doesn't end here. It continues tomorrow in Parliament and beyond. And as a big believer in people, in a well-being economy, and in the power that people have when they are informed, I really hope that every decision brings us closer to a healthier, better informed Europe that, as mentioned, is not in any way opposed to the competitive Europe that we really want to see. Thank you to all the panelists, and that would be all.
Thank you. Wow, what a panel. I feel like one thing beats the other tonight. But in terms of just some closing remarks, I'm honored to now give the floor to Manuela Ripa to wrap up the session and yeah, what we've heard over the last almost 2 hours. I can't believe it's been that long.
Yeah, time's flying while having fun, you know. So thank you very much for this very interesting. In the end, it was more a discussion and a dialogue. But anyhow, thank you very much for this very interesting discussion. I think we had a lot of food for thoughts. I think one of the most important messages also to Florence and what this rightly said, we shouldn't cut NGOs who represent patient organizations. We should have enough funds for them, for sure, or the European Union should give you funds. And I think what we learned also today is that alcohol is one of the most downplayed risks in our society, and that the health budgets are increasing because we don't have enough prevention. And let me just quote something from the member state that I know best, that is Germany. There we spend over 5,000 euros per person per year on health. That is the highest in Europe. And yet, as researchers from the Leibniz Institute of Prevention have pointed out, our system remains inefficient. Why? Because we prioritize treatment and not prevention. If we just put a fraction of that spending into more prevention, more education, health literacy, labeling, evidence-based regulation, the benefits would be immense. And that is why I think that we should have a big look on that one. And that it's not only about cancer, it's also a heart issue, that what one of the speakers mentioned at the beginning. And I would like to use it also a little bit symbolic to say that it should be at the heart of us all to do more on prevention, to empower more, especially young people. I heard that you are very much in favor of labeling, and that we need prevention is not an enemy of freedom, but prevention is the foundation of a healthy and informed, empowered society. Thank you very much.
Thank you. And now to you, Andrew Vitanis, do you have any closing remarks? What do you take away from the session? What's your call to action?
It would we continue our conversations with you. I have no political will to close those debates because yes, a lot of young people, colleagues, we are the champions, my friends. We are the champions, and Florence, thanks a lot for your efforts to organize, also to help to organize this event. And of course, let's discuss how can we address the issues. I'm ready to propose tomorrow in Sound Committee to invite Varhelian to debate those issues about operating grants, because it's so painful. We need join our forces and be champions, colleagues. And I wish you to have such spirit in your heart. Thanks a lot.
Thank you so much for these moving words. I think they've really had an impact. Tonight we've had the chance to listen to 2 exciting panels. We've had the chance to listen to a presentation that showed us what is actually behind QR codes. And we were recently asked, also our youth network, what is so special about young people in this conversation? And our generation lives online in a world overflowing with misinformation, marketing, and manipulation. But what's missing in all that digital noise are facts. And if the online world can't guarantee that, frankly, we can't, just as right now, fact check every TikTok, but we can make sure that at least the physical bottle is giving us the facts, that we don't have to go to another website, but that we have the information right there on the bottle. And many things have become clear tonight. We have evidence-based information. We have the evidence that consumers need to be able to have the facts to make informed choices. We have heard the benefits of informed choices. Less alcohol consumption means less overflow in hospitals, means less hospital admissions. Higher productivity means better diversified economies. And informed choices also lead to less violence, specifically against women and girls. And all this leads to resilient and safer societies. So the question here remains, what are we going to do about it? I think we've heard a lot tonight also about the tools. They're all available, the cancer plan, the cardiovascular plan. We just have to implement it. And let's use the existing system because it's all there. We don't need to reinvent the wheel. We just need to get to implementation in the EU, in the member states, in the federal states, on the local level, implementation now. I'd like to thank you now, Vitenis and Manuela, for hosting this event, for inviting us here, for bringing youth to the European Parliament. I want to thank all members of our panels, some of whom have traveled far to be here tonight with us. And I want to thank you, the audience, and especially our youth representatives. I think you've really shown how important it is that young people are included in this conversation. Because yes, we need to be protected from alcohol, but we also need to be on the table, designing the labels. We need to create the campaigns that are supposed to speak to young people, to inform them about the choices they are making. And I'd like to thank Eurocare for organizing this event. I want to thank the United European Gastroenterology Association, and I want to thank the European Association for the Study of the Liver for hosting us here today. And before I let you all go tonight, one quick administrative task. In order to leave the premises of the European Parliament, you will have to take the elevator to the 3rd floor where an assistant will guide you outside. Because as you all know, security is quite strict here in the European Parliament and we don't want anyone to get lost. But that's it for tonight. Thank you all for being here and for making this event so great. Thank you.